In today's society, there has been a lot of debate on our current sources of energy. This is being heavily discussed because our environment has been changing and the root cause of this change should be addressed. Most scientists would attest to the fact that this change is a result of an increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that are trapping in the Earth's radiation and heating the Earth's surface. This is generally referred to as global climate change. Climate is the aggregation of weather patterns, and this pattern has been changing. This change is altering global climate patterns, making them more severe, and ultimately making them more destructive. According to Steve Gorham, author of The Mad World of Climatism, switching over to renewable energy is very expensive. Even more expensive than the current cost of fossil fuels. According to Steve Gorham, fossil fuels are more affordable than renewable energy, and that changing to renewable resources is an expense so high it is not even worth doing. This is false. There are many expenses that go uncalculated by companies that produce fossil fuels. These companies fail to include the cost of environmental degradation, the harm it causes to the economy, and the destruction of people's health. These things are known as externalities. Dana Nucitelli, an environmental scientist, states that some externalities related to the consumption and combustion of fossil fuels are as follows. Increased illness due to pollution, increased rate of climate change due to large greenhouse gas emissions, loss of biodiversity, water pollution, and the cost to taxpayers for environmental monitoring and cleanup. These externalities arise from large amounts of pollutants released by the conversion of fossil fuels to energy. Hodgson, author of The Energy Crisis, an article that discusses the impacts of fossil fuels versus renewable resources, mentions how a typical coal power station produces over 1 million tons of ash, 21,000 tons of sludge, and discharges into the atmosphere 11 million tons of carbon dioxide, 16,000 tons of sulfur dioxide, 29,000 tons of nitrogen oxides, and 1,000 tons of dust. Coal alone releases large amounts of pollutants into the atmosphere. These figures help to formulate an understanding of the magnitude of the externalities that arise from consuming fossil fuels. Scientists have actually tried to place a tangible value on these externalities. For example, Maychall, an energy advisor for the EPA, they believe the economic value of health impacts from fossil fuel electricity in the United States ranges from $361.7 billion to $886.5 billion annually, representing a 2.5 to 6% of the national GDP, and that is just from health impacts alone. Should we instead look to renewable sources of energy who don't have all these hidden costs associated with them? One of these renewable resources is solar energy. Solar energy entails capturing the sun's radiation, which is practically unlimited via photovoltaic cells, and transforming it into electricity. Solar energy is intermittent and initial investments in solar energy can be costly. A 2 kilowatt system costs roughly $9,000 but pays for itself relatively quickly, typically within 5 to 10 years. Using solar energy for electricity generation also does not release CO2 and other pollutants into the air. This helps avoid the costly externalities related to obtaining and combusting fossil fuels such as coal and oil. Wind energy is another one of these renewable resources. Wind energy entails utilizing wind in the atmosphere and transforming it into electricity through the rotation of turbines. Wind energy is also intermittent and relatively costly with initial investments. A 10 kilowatt turbine which is used to power a large home can cost from $50,000 to $80,000. However, the total levelized cost of wind energy generation is only around 3% more expensive than energy generated by a conventional coal power plant. Therefore, since no CO2 or other harmful pollutants are released into the atmosphere during wind electricity generation, that 3% is minute when compared to the costly externalities related to obtaining and combusting fossil fuels.
Granted, there are some downfalls and externalities with renewable resources such as intermittence, the death of birds and bats due to windmills, high initial costs, and fossil fuel consumption for the manufacturing of parts. The benefits outweigh the downfalls by far. The large amounts of externalities related to fossil fuel consumption are destroying our planet as well as the people on it, creating an expense that nothing can match, much less surpass. This makes the myth that renewable energy resources are more expensive false and misleading. This ultimately slows down our much-needed transition to more sustainable energy resources.